Hi all, I thought we could run a simulation game for the final position of the World Chess Championship Classical part, which was helped actually because Chess.com's running a thematic tournament from that position, so it's quite easy to get games of Leela Chess for that, with very decent hardware behind it. So this is against Andscacs, the engine Andscacs playing white. So let's revisit that game 12, which has caused much controversy in the chess world. Madness, chaos, weird comments from everyone. Outrageous bets on Reddit. Someone betting $1,000 he could beat anyone who thinks that it's easy for black to win. So yeah, I thought it's a good basis for an engine simulation. So let's get to that position. So we'll have Leela playing with the black pieces. So taking the role of Magnus Carlsen, what could have been. So I'm going to take you to the critical position at the end of game 12. So check out the game 12 video if you want annotations of these moves. I'm not going to repeat that here. We're going to try and venture into new territory and understanding of that final position. Given that no one's letting it go, no one's letting Magnus Carlsen off the hook. Even Kasparov is saying he would be like feeling bad for like weeks after if he agreed to draw here. So it was after Rook A8. So Queen. Okay, let's get to the position. Rook A8 here. The classic Rook A8, move 31. Magnus, it seems, very silently offered the draw. In fact, I've looked at the clip several times and can't hear the draw offer, but apparently he did make a draw offer here, rather subtly. So it was accepted. What could have been. Now, looking at this position, white does have the major threat that white has is bishop takes c5, which could be strategically important in relation to this e6 square. Because this knight can also jump into e6, so we can have a coordinated effort to do something with the e6 square. However, anytime white does that, black would grab the bishop pair, and if black plays b6, black would also grab a semi-open b file. So it's not without its perils, this idea, this plan. But anyway, Andscacs does something with this knight on f2. I'm not sure what else to do with the knight on f2 in this position actually, rather than go to g5 to head for e6 sometimes. So it seems like a fairly logical first move. So let's continue this amazing investigation here. Now Leela decides on bishop d7, which, okay, it connects the rooks. Hello, hello. It eyes the e6 square. It keeps an idea that b5 could be a break later, despite black seemingly trying to forfeit that right for b5. It's still on the cards if there can be pressure built for b5 to be prepared. So bishop d7, let's accept that. But also, even closing up the position with a3, it seems from a technical perspective, this position, it seems black's okay as well. Black's with a small edge. But let's keep this pawn uncommitted for the moment with bishop d7. And now queen a3 is played. So why queen a3? I just want to unearth the secrets behind why Andscacs would play queen a3. If we look at, this is interesting, rook d2. Now this blocks, I know this is a bit silly thing to do, but just for the sake of demonstrating why queen a3 might be safe, because here a3, b3, let's just take this for sake of argument, there's rook at a6, and all of a sudden there's actually a big tactical vulnerability with white in this position because of ideas like rook b6. Of course queen a5, so you might want to play this first to stop queen a5 to catch that queen in a sort of virtual mating net. So that would be a big idea. Rook a8, rook f8 rather, and then rook a6 to b6 to hit the queen. So let's take a disastrous continuation for white, just for sake of argument. Here, rook f8, creating that net for the queen. And yes, rook b6. And black would be winning the queen. Magnus would become world champion. No need to play in the rapids. But would that really occur? No, because probably queen a3 would be played to stop a3 and all this stuff. So it seems like a very sensible prophylaxis type move to play queen a3 to avoid dangers like that. So let's continue though. Black plays rook a b8. Now, because the queen has not put the brakes on, is released the brakes on that b5 break. So we can see that b5 is now supported again. 2 to sort of 1, basically. That bishop on e2 is kind of on defensive duty against b5. Let's say white plays knight g5. This is what Andscacs plays. Now, the move given here by Leela is rook f c8. Yes, a mysterious move, but let's consider the alternative b5. I think it might be premature to play b5 here because white's art strategy of the e6 square comes to life after c takes, bishop takes, which weakens, of course, e6, is this more than positionally suspect. Bishop takes c5. So this now also threatens, of course, bishop takes d6. So let's take that, knight e6, and that's a nasty fork, and that's with a big advantage to white. So this would be a disaster scenario if black is too aggressive to push for b5 immediately here. So let's keep with Leela's move, rook f c8, that's the one that's played. The queen can go back to reinforce b5 again. So can black actually have the cake and eat it, i.e. try to play for b5 without this e6 disaster? Leela, in fact, chooses b6 here. Now, this does give that big option of being able to play b takes now, opening up this b file. Does this cast some useful insight onto the position? Queen d2. Let's follow this through. Leela played rook b7. And now, Andscacs fought to get rid of, to parry this f6 bishop. Leela took, queen takes, and now white threatens that invasion with queen f6. Invasive move, queen f6. Leela parries that with queen d8. So it seems pretty logical play. The simulation seems plausible play for both sides. I hope you might agree at this moment. If black plays a3, just to see the dangers here, then queen f6 is nasty, hitting g6. If black has to defend, then actually b4 becomes possible. And this gets pretty nasty. Well, it's at least even. Not pretty nasty, it's at least even. Let's say that. So queen d8, stopping this invasive queen f6. Bishop f1. And now Leela chooses queen e7. Rook dc2. And then we have rook a8. So is actually b5 on the cards here? Rook c1. Rook e8. Yes. Rook cd1. And now Leela actually wants to exchange off queens, believe it or not. So before even considering b5, to get the queens off as well. Queen e3. White doesn't want the queens off, but the queen is occupying a nice diagonal now. And actually basically makes b5 even more effective. If the queen's just left there focused on b2, then it's a great coordination of pressure on b2 here, on that sensitive square. So we have queen f6, queen a3, king g7, bishop e2. And now, believe it or not, king h6. This is a really curious tactical idea. It's kind of making sure there's going to be no pin with queen c3, basically. So that gives black some extra flexibility in some cases. And it causes a panic for Andscacs in this position. So basically, it's like a luxury to be able to pin the queen with queen c3 if needed. That luxury taken away means that maybe b5 is more dangerous than usual now, and it leads to what seems to be a concession move, queen c3, a real concession with structural damage offered to black. So very interesting position. So it looks as though, yeah, this looks bad really. If rook c1 instead, let's follow this through. Leela recommends queen e, not Leela, Stockfish 9 here. My analytical assistant is still Stockfish 9. Queen e7 and then b5 here. So I guess even if the queen's not on f6 to be pinned, it was nice to have the queen c3 check as a resource. In this scenario, where the queen is now protecting d6, this is the nuance of the position. It seems here, after taking, there's actually knight d3, and that's nasty. So leaving the knight on e6, it's not check or anything. Knight d3 gets to be nasty on b2, and black has an advantage. So with d6 protected, black builds up on that b file rather nicely, and still has the options of queen f, not queen g7 because the knight takes, the option of queen f6 as well, to coordinate a lot of pressure on that b2. So it does seem that if queen c3 isn't played, it seems mysterious to do this, but if it isn't, black is in a good shape to play that b5 now that the king is on h6. So maybe this can be regarded as one of the great secrets of this position, of the unfinished attacking game, which has caused outrage around the world. So anyway, queen c3. So Leela takes on c3 and actually puts the king back on g7. Now king f6. And now builds up for that b5. So it seems the circumstances are really quite ripe. And you might think this is a paradox. Why undouble the white pawns? Well, we see this time and time again. Sometimes you want to translate one sort of weakness into another, which might be more exploitable with your concrete pieces that you have available to you. It's no use saying, well, theoretically, my opponent had double pawns. If you can't really checkmate them, for example, then so what? So, you know, sometimes. So really, black is prepared now to undouble these pawns. So rook b1, king goes to e7. We have knight h7. And now Leela actually plays a3, believe it or not. So no rush to play this b5 at all. a3, I guess, safeguards against this rook, which is on d4, just waiting for b5 to pounce on the poor a pawn. So the conditions are slightly being fine-tuned here for b5. In fact, I think that's what we can say so far of this whole simulation, that Leela is really aiming for the perfect conditions for b5. So knight g5. It seems this a3 pawn is not a liability anyway. It can't actually be attacked. It's on a dark square away from the bishop. This knight's over here. It seems very unlikely for that to be a weakness at the moment. We have knight going back to a6 now. Okay, so what's going on here? King c1. Now bishop a4, which stops things like rook b3 and still prepares b5. Knight e6. Knight c5. Yes, we have king d2. On knight g5, which seems a total waste of time, of course, b5. This is a nice scenario for that b5, and we can see the damage caused here. There's no rook b4 here because of knight d3 check in any case, and black is threatening things like rook b2. That form pawn is quite a killer form pawn in this endgame scenario with that important hook. So here, knight d3 check. This position is very pleasant indeed. Black's getting a big advantage. So let's see. So king d2, and now that leaves the e6 knight to be taken. So white is probably banking on d6 being vulnerable. Maybe we have king e3 getting prepared for doubling rooks on d6. King takes. Actually, or not. It's a bit slow. Everything's a bit slow. White just seems to have lost the pawn there. So it is actually officially a pawn down. Bishop f1, b5, rook bd1. Okay, there is some pressure on d6. Is this enough, really? c5. We have this move. Now c takes, and some rooks come off. A couple of rooks come off. Rook d7. Is this enough to win this position? We have now rook b3. Rook d1, the rook comes in, and have a look at this endgame. The a3 pawn is taken, but black's kingside pawns are weak. So yeah, white is seemingly struggling in this resulting rook and pawn endgame. And Leela is actually, with her table-based integration able to head for a safe winning rook and pawn ending here, giving up that pawn to take this one, and the king is too far away. This is actually a winning table-based position. The king is cut off from stopping this pawn, and in fact the pawn can make huge progress here, getting down to the second rank there, and then this move, getting ready to build the bridge to stop the checks, and it's all over, bar the shouting. Yep. So Leela's won this simulation. Yep, it shows. Let's just get to the end of this game. Okay, so what does this game show? It seems black has some issues to attend to. That e6 square is the main one. It seems if black gets out of the way sometimes with the king, gets the queens off, and optimizes for b5, installs a form pawn, it seems white's going to be in bad shape. If white has to do something desperate like queen c3 as evidenced in this particular game, then black is in great shape for that b5 and the resulting endgames that are just very bad for white. But, you know, I think personally too much has been made of Magnus Carlsen's draw offer. I think also, let's take a strategic perspective. Now, what I mean by that is a longer term perspective. If Magnus gives the impression he can really thump Caruana in the Rapids, that's basically saying to future challengers in like 2 years' time or whatever, that you better take some risks, otherwise I'll just draw the match and just beat you in the Rapid or Blitz. Unless someone emerges who's much better than Magnus at faster time controls. So maybe it sets a signal up for the next World Championship as well. And also, of course, keeps the interest of the match going. So today we'll have some key Rapid games later anyway, which could spell a new World Chess Champion. I don't know if it's drawn, if it goes to a Blitz rematch or something, a Blitz playoff. Okay, I should really check up on that. Please let me know. Okay, if you enjoyed this game analysis and got some extra insights into that, the unfinished World Championship game, Game 12, then please click on the top left box, which should appear shortly, to become a member at chessworld.net. Play against other YouTubers. You can also check this YouTube analysis on the Improve menu, Learn from the Masters, and click YouTube Order there. Okay, so comments, questions, donations, see the description. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell with that, please. That's all much appreciated. Thanks very much.